Welcome back to The Takeout. In 2023, two IRS employees came forward and alleged that the Justice Department was improperly handling the tax fraud case against Hunter Biden, son of President Joe Biden. They have a new book out. It's called The Whistleblowers versus the Big Guy: Two Special Agents, the Biden Crime Family, and a Corrupt Bureaucracy. Here is some of whistleblower Joseph Ziegler's testimony before Congress.
In early August of 2022, federal prosecutors from the Department of Justice Tax Division drafted a 99-page memorandum. In so, they were recommending for approval felony and misdemeanor charges for the 2017, 18, and 19 tax years. That did not happen here, and I am not sure why.
Mr. Ziegler joins me now from Atlanta. He now works, by the way, in Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's office as a senior advisor for IRS reform. Mr. Ziegler, it's good to have you with us. The title of the book, The Big Guy. For my audience who may not have followed all of this, who is the big guy, and why do you refer to it as the Biden crime family?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. That's a really great question. So the big guy, obviously from the testimony that we provided, the big guy is Joe Biden. And why we called it the crime family, I think we wanted to capture kind of what Gary and I went through in becoming whistleblowers. It's kind of the story of David and Goliath, two measly IRS employees who went up against the Biden family, the White House, Department of Justice, and the IRS. And in the end, we won. We were vindicated. We reached settlements with the Department of Justice and the IRS. We reached, if you know, from Joe Biden had to pardon his son. He was charged with everything that we had brought forward. So it is clear that we are vindicated in everything that we had done. And I mean, for not a lot of whistleblowers experience this in the victory of, hey, they've achieved what they were ultimately trying to achieve. But we're really on the other side of this right now.
And Mr. Ziegler, remind my audience, if you had not spoken up, something else would have occurred, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This entire case, everything would have been swept under the rug. So when I was thrown off the investigation, they would have just proceeded on with two misdemeanor tax charges, not treating Hunter Biden like every other taxpayer. They would have gotten this, most likely this plea deal through that judge, and then this would have never seen the light of day.
What is your role now with Treasury Secretary Bessent? Because if there's anything that most Americans recoil from, it's the idea that the IRS could be used against them or be used to look away from some fat cats or some people with connections.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at what we went through. We were up against a mountain, and in our new role, or I've been in it for quite some time, but in the senior advisor role, we're working on IRS reform, which includes de-weaponizing the IRS, and I mean, it's a lot of work, and who better to do it than someone that experienced such weaponization of the IRS and DOJ under the Biden administration.
In that terminology, weaponization, is it singularly directed at one kind of Americans or one part of the political spectrum, in your experience?
Well, I think it's very important to have a fair and equitable tax system. We have to treat taxpayers the same. And in the case of Hunter Biden, in the case that I was working, we were not treating him like we would any other taxpayer. So in order to de-weaponize, you have to essentially look at the breadth of taxpayers and hold everyone accountable that should be held accountable the same that you would anyone else, despite what their last name is.
And in terms of enforcement, those who are wealthy tend to invest in accountants and tax experts to help them legally work their way around the system. There's nothing you as an investigator can do about that. You're talking about something else, correct?
Yeah, it's more of, is this a systemic problem, or is it more of a person-by-person bias that they might have against one person or one group of people? And I mean, majority of IRS employees are great people, and we know that we need to stay apolitical. And I think it's prudent to a voluntary tax compliance system that there are safeguards. Essentially, if you do something wrong, but you willfully do that wrong and you commit a crime, you should be held accountable for that. And that's what we have brought up with Hunter Biden.
And the obviousness of the evidence, to your way of thinking, in Hunter Biden was so clear that what happened to you could not have happened for any other reason other than bias in favor of Hunter Biden. Do I hear you correctly?
Yeah, so I mean, it was even bigger than that. We couldn't follow leads that led to Joe Biden. We couldn't ask normal investigative questions that would have led to other members of the Biden family. I couldn't interview some of the adult children of the Biden family. So it was things that didn't make any sense. And I think that they were concerned about the optics of how it might look if we were to go down certain avenues or routes. And to look at the actual tax crimes, I mean, there were deductions for, and this was in his actual indictment that he pled guilty on. There was a deduction for $10,000 paid for a sex club that he wrote was a golf membership. I've never seen anywhere where you're allowed to do that. But I think what this case elevated to was that there was this misconduct that was so egregious that if you were any other taxpayer, we would have thrown the book at you.
Joseph Ziegler from Atlanta. Congratulations on the book. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.